Hello everyone. This is Dr. Rachita Misra speaking to you on your software engineering course. So today in this lesson we will deal with the software configuration management repository. In the last lesson we have looked into some of the basic concepts under the software configuration management or change management, and today we will deal with the repository that the software configuration management system has to maintain. The topics that we will look into the elements of the software configuration management, which we have seen in the last class, but again we will re-look at it. Then we will go to the SCM repository. We will see what is there in this repository. We will discuss about the functions and the tool set. So in the last lesson, if you remember, we had seen this slide when we were going through the elements of the configuration management system. And we had said that there are 4 types of elements that a configuration management system need to have with it. And the first and foremost was the configuration element, which deals with a data deposit. The concept that there should be a data repository and a set of tools with the data depository. And what they will keep, they will store all the configurable items, and whenever it is required, it will provide controlled access to each of the objects in the which are part of the software configuration item. So this is the first and foremost main important element in a configuration management system that now we are going to see. So this is the SCM repository. Since the SCM is an old concept necessary for any software development work, so this SCM repository is a very old concept. And when it started as a paper-based repository, or in other words, it was a manual operation. You can think of a paper-based repository, that means it's like a file cabinet which contains folders. Instead of a computer with folders, a file system or a database, there and with applications, it will have file cabinet containing folders and human beings opening it and referring to it. So that is why it is paper-based and manual. The configuration manager, this person who maintains the configuration, has to maintain the SCSCI as well as control information such as its versions, baselines, issues, etc. in physical files, or maximum he can create a computer file for it. And so what is the problem with these kind of systems? When you want to find any item, then it creates a lot of difficulty because it is all in manual form, in sequential computer files or in paper-based repositories, and they will be detached information because there are so many type of informations to be kept in the repository. And it is a challenge to determine accurately which items are changed when and by whom. Not only that, we have difficulty in accessing it, finding the right item, but also we have problem in accurately determining who did what kind of change and when it was done. So there is no proper audit trail on it. And constructing a new version of an existing program was time consuming and provided the scope for error. Whenever you had to do this change, you have an element of error. It is very easy to create error when you do this because you don't have a proper config. You might pick up the wrong version of the program and do it, and later on find out that something which was done in you didn't take the new version, so you missed out something. Or you might have 2 people writing the same program, so you might override each other's work. So there is a lot of problem in creating the new version. And describing detailed or complex relationship between configuration items whenever needed was almost impossible. So it was very difficult to maintain relations between different. So if you want to say, if you have relations, then what is the advantage? You would like to ask me. What is this? What is the need of having this relationship? Why you want to relationship? Because then you know that if you change one object of the configurable item, and if it is related to another object, then you can track it, and you can say this is also may need a change, the other one may also need a change. So that is why you need, if you can establish a relationship between configurable items, then it is easy for you to handle it. But if you have a manual type of system, then it is almost impossible to do it, because how do you maintain the relationship? So that is why the need for the automated system, automated repository, along with its lot of tools. So today's SCM repository that you all will be working with is very much improved over the old paper-based system. It is a set of control processes and data structures that allow a software team to manage change in an effective manner. So it is like an application by itself. Only thing is that its objective is different, and it is always doing, its main objective is to provide software configuration management services to the different type of stakeholders. We have already seen the different views of the SCM activities by different stakeholders. So this SCM repository, along with its tools, which constitutes the heart of the software configuration management activity, or the element, that will have to provide all those kind of services to each of the stakeholders. So it is a set of control processes and data structures that allow a software team to manage change in an effective manner. It acts as the center for both accumulation software engineering information and storage of the software programs. So you can store them, and you can also accumulate a set of all those programs and say that this is my such and such version of the software. So the two kind of things it does. It collects, accumulates different components, and builds it together, and also it individually stores each of the objects. Software engineers use tools integrated with the repository to interact with it. So not only that they interact with the SCM repository and its own tools, but there are many other productivity tools that software engineers use for their engineering activities, which can be integrated into the SCM repository. For example, if you have a testing tool, you may like to integrate the testing tool to this SCM repository, so that as and when you are doing a change and you are checking in, the test will be automatically done. So that is one example of a integration of an external tool with this SCM repository. So this current SCM repositories that is available in the market and being in use have that kind of ability. They provide the kind of data structures that can be shared, and it can be used by the other tools. It manages the current baseline. Last class we have understood what is a baseline. So the current baseline it will manage. It will keep noted somewhere. It will say this is my current baseline. So whenever you want to check out, you will always get first the baseline. Unless you want to go into the archive, it will always give you the current baseline. It will also do the versioning. That means each time a new object, a new version, a new copy of the old object is released to the SCM tool, it will create a new version of it. And the previous versions also will be stored, it like an archive. So that is why we say versioning as well as archival. And also it helps in the production release control. Why it helps in the production release control? Because it can accumulate different kind of software components and create a release, create a complete software as a collection of these objects, and those objects together can be released to the production. So any software version you want to release to the after the change, you want to release it to the production. That means you want to do the delivery so that the users can use it, happens through the production release control mechanism of the SCM repository and its automated tools. So now we can tell what will be the functions of this SCM repository, because it is doing a lot of responsibility. It is giving a lot of important services to us. So first of all, it needs to have the data integrity function or the feature. What is data integrity function? What it will do, if it has this function, will validate the repository entries. Each time you enter something, you release something to the repository, it will validate it, and it will ensure the consistency among the configurable objects, and automatically cascades the modification when changes to one object demands changes to objects related to it. So whenever so it will, because it is keeping some relationship, now this is a automated system, so it is able to keep the relationship between the objects. So by using that relationship between the objects, whenever there will be change to one object, it will cascade the change to the other objects also, to the related objects also, and or maybe it will notify that these are the changes that you have to do. Then there is a information sharing. By using what is information sharing, it will manage and control multi-user access for the multiple developers to work at a time. So the repository will be shared by multiple users, and these multiple users can be working at a time. Not only that they will be given access, but at a time they will be logging into the SCM tool and working on it. And SCM tool should be able to provide that kind of access and control their activities. That means it should provide a time slot. It should do a time sharing like operating system. It will do a time sharing between different users. Then it will share the information among the developers as well as several tools. So the tools will also be using the repository and its data structures and all its objects. Also the developers will be sharing it. So whatever is the data or the metadata, that will be shared among developers, that is the users, as well as the tools that are sitting on the repository or any other tool that is getting integrated to it. And another important thing it will do is that it will lock and unlock objects. It will share, but when it is sharing, it will not give any unauthorized access. So because the access has to be authorized, it has to be controlled. So what it will do some locking and unlocking. So most of the time it will be locked, and only under a certain approval it will unlock the objects. And if it does this, what will happen? One change cannot overlap the other change. So consistency will be maintained, integrity will be maintained. So while doing the information sharing, it will also see that the integrity is not lost and the consistency is maintained. Then you come to the data integration. It will provide database functions that allows various SCM tasks to be performed on one or more of the configurable items. Then you come to tool integration, establishes a data model that can be accessed by many software engineering tools with control of access to the data, thereby providing an integrated platform for all software engineering activities. So this SCM repository becomes the center, and all other tools can be built over it, so that you can get an integrated platform for the software engineering activities, and the productivity will be higher, and also the mistakes will be less, so the quality will be better. So it provides a very good tool integration as becoming the it maintains the central repository of all the items that is required by other tools, and by properly sharing it with control, with the necessary control, it becomes a very good method of sharing information and creating integrated platform. Then comes the methodology enforcement. So it defines an entity relationship model for the repository that implies a specific process model has to be followed for software engineering activities, because all the software engineering activities are now integrated to this tool. So what will happen? They will be forced, because this methodology is, because it is creating an entity relationship with inside it in the repository itself. So it will enforce all the users to follow the same kind of relationship, and so it will force the specific process model to everybody, so that the work all the developers' work will be of the same type. They will have to follow the process model. So that methodology will be enforced. Then comes the last one, document standardization. The definition of objects in the database will lead to standard approach for creating software engineering documents, because you are always doing it through some tool which is integrated to the SCM repository, and each time you are creating it, it becomes unique and everybody else uses the same one. So what will happen? It will become standardized. So even documents will also become standardized, because the object, the definition is the same definition is being reused by everybody else. So now we come to the tool set, because we have always been talking of the tool set. So it will have a repository and then it will have a tool set. So what is the role of this tool set? What they will actually do? The first and foremost is the versioning. It will save and retrieve all repository object based on version number as and when they are created or changed. So what it will do, it will save the repository objects and it will retrieve them, and once the changes are done, as and when they are created or they are changed, what it will do, it will give a version number to it and save it. Save and retrieve all repository objects based on version number as and when they are created or changed. Then this versioning capability, it will provide the capability to maintain different branches for several increment development as well as for the production version. So there will be a production version which will be the latest version, which is possibly baselined. With respect to this baseline, it will create some different branches, because so many development might be going on, more than one set of development might be going on at a time, or we're creating different increments. So for each this increment, it will create a copy of the components that are required. It will take it out from the repository, create a different branch, and in that branch it will keep the copy, so that it will be easy for the developers to access it. Also, it helps in effective management and release control of software to production, and whenever it does it, all the released versions are under version control, and the previous versions are also stored. So suppose something goes wrong with the release of the new software, the new version, then the team members will be able to call it back. That means the previous version will be reverted back and the current one will be moved out. So this kind of capability, versioning capability, releasing capability, creating branches, they are all part of the versioning, and you need to have a tool set which will be capable of doing this kind of service for the repository. Then comes the dependency tracking and change management. So if you have this, then you will be able to manage variety of relationship between the stored configuration objects, track and respond to the changes in the state and relationship of all objects in the repository. And so basically, since you are having the relationship, since you are keeping the relationship also in the repository, so you can do the dependency tracking and the change management. So because we want to do this, so we have to keep this relationship. Because it is keeping the relationship, it is able to do the dependency tracking and change management. So it needs to have a tool set to follow this, to be able to satisfy this. For example, if a UML class diagram is modified, the repository should be able to find out all the related classes or interfaces and also the source code that will need modification. So this kind of relationship saving will be able to provide us this dependency tracking, and which will help us in the change management. Then comes the requirement tracing. In requirement tracing, we have discussed it in the requirement engineering that it is, we indent it, we give it unique name so that we can track it. This is normally called forward tracing or forward tracking. So when we do this kind of tracking, the design and the construction component are getting tracked from the specification requirements. So in this requirement specification, we have some indented numbers, and for each one, we are able to say that this requirement is done in this design model. This design model is implemented in this component. So that is called as a forward tracking. So the repository tool set can provide you a requirement tracing for the forward direction. In the same way, you can also do a backward tracing. In other words, if you have a work product, you can go backward and determine which requirement was responsible for generating it. Why was this work product created? What was the source of the requirement? How did it come? So the backward tracing is also possible. Here you have a forward tracing. You are coming from requirement to the design, to the construction element, which is now part of the repository. Here you are going backward. That means you have a object, you have a source code or any object, and you are going to trace it back to which part of the requirements document it came from. Then comes the configuration management. It keeps a series of configurations representing specific project milestones or production releases. And also it provides audit trails. What is audit trail? It establishes additional information about when and why and by whom the changes were made. Changes about source of change can be entered by as attributes of specific objects in the repository. So this is what this tool does. It helps us in maintaining the audit trail. So we are coming to the end of this lesson. Summarizing what we have discussed today. For proper functioning of the software configuration management activity, an automated SCM repository along with the tool set to perform its functions is very much desired or necessary in today's context of rapid delivery system of the software projects. So we are not in the old era that we can still continue to work with the paper. We need a very properly functioning SCM, which is an automated SCM repository, so that we can do all these things not only controlled way, but also very fast to meet to the speed of the rapid delivery that is required. We discussed the basic features of the SCM repository and the features of the tool set it should support. That is what we were going through, and we were discussing each one of the features and the tool set functionality it has to provide. Then there are several SCM software available commercially and open open source tools. So tools are very important. So that is why which are those software repositories with the right kind of tool. We tried to see that, and we found that there are a lot of available. CVS is one of the concurrent versioning system. It is one of the oldest tool, very old tool, but it's a very popular tool, and it is very much used by a lot of software teams. And recently, a lot of other open tools have come up from Apache, Open Boxes, Open LMIS, and things like that. Then there are also tools which are allowing distributed environment. That means developers sitting in different locations, they are able to work with a single SCM tool, which is providing distributed access. So what it does is it has the repository is in a distributed manner. It keeps the SCM repository in a distributed manner, and at certain time it synchronizes it so that it has a local. So the people who will sitting in a location, they will have a local repository, and there will be some central repository. So there will be many local repositories and there will be a central repository. It's a very difficult synchronization because it is distributed development. So the SCM tool itself provides distributed environment. And also it is also, we said that it is also possible to integrate it to other computer aided software engineering tools for productivity improvement. Now this is a website which gives 10 SCM tools used for development environments. These are all commercially available tools, and I have noted some open source tools for you here. I'm sure you might be using, even in fact a lot of you use GitHub. That is also it's a repository where you bring things. It is not providing you the software configuration management. There is another one, GitLab. You can use that, but GitHub is a repository from where you can take out things with access. So coming to the end of this lesson, thank you all. We have I hope you have been able to understand the repository concept in the software configuration management.